Ooh, that was ugly. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Coffee and Craps. This is John with Pro Craps. Yeah, happy Tuesday here. So I'm actually getting ready for a trip out to Reno. So I thought that give you a window into kind of how I practice. And I think, something I want to talk about here as well is sort of this idea of mental toughness. And I think that's what I call the episode today. And what I want to talk about with that is this. Jacob from Wage Me This did an episode a few days back and was really talking about that. He was talking about being mentally tough and what that looks like. And so he was using it in the frame of reference of how you bet, how do you attack a table, that kind of thing. And I think there's truth in that, right? And I want to talk with you about that a little bit today too. But more importantly, I want to get into the way that I prepare. And the mindset that you go to the casino with. So I'm going to keep throwing here while I talk. So I got to get a few more throws in here. So let's switch over to my iPad view, and I'll kind of explain to you my setup here. So if you haven't seen my setup before, I've got my small kind of movable table here with the throwing deck and the rail, and on my main table, I've got this. Actually, it's a shoe rack that I bought from Amazon, which is great. It's about 7 or 8 inches tall. So when I'm working my chopper toss, I actually toss under it, and I make sure I keep my arc correct. And when I'm working more of a par style toss, I throw over it. And this is like my morning ritual. Like I get up, I have my coffee, and I come in here and I just warm up a little bit every day, and sort of I don't even bet. I just toss. I'm just trying to get a feel for things here. Anyway, so I'm getting ready for that Reno trip. And what I want to talk about with regards to mental toughness is this. It's the mindset of how you approach. There was a bad shot there. I landed on top. Approach where you go to the casino with. Now, what I'm doing here is this. This is an interesting trip for me because usually when I go to the casinos, it's just me or me and my wife, right? We'll go for a night or I'm going to go like what I call a business trip. Get up there and, make my weekly withdrawal from the casino. And it's not necessarily a social call. I mean, I get social with the dealers and stuff at the table, but that's not really why I'm there. I'm there to, do a job. This one's different. This time I'm going out there to Reno, and I'm going to be meeting up with Brian from White Crap Shooters. I'm going to meet with, I think, Top Hat from the Color Up Club. I'm going to probably meet with Jeremy a little bit. And it's going to be pretty social, actually, this one here. So it's interesting because I've got a specific goal financially in mind for this one. I've got to upgrade some things here in the crafts lab. I need to get some soundproofing for the walls to get rid of this echo, and I've got to get a new microphone for the podcast and that kind of thing. So I'm going there with like this intent to win, a certain amount of money, and my mindset has to be that you're there on task. However, I'm going to be there with friends, and by being there with friends, that means a couple of things. Ooh, that was a good throw. We're going to get more social. For one, and I think that can take you off your game. If you get social's great, but it'll take you off your game a little bit. And I worry about that piece of it. I worry about, am I going to get there and just play and have so much fun playing that we forget about the strategy, that I take my mind off the ball kind of thing. So what I'm going to be working on this week really is sort of, and as I do with these shows, is how I talk to you while I play. I'm going to do that when I practice. And I actually don't normally practice that way, but I've got to practice in a way that while I'm practicing my betting and my throwing and everything else, I'm talking, and I'm going to like mock talk a little bit so that I can keep my mind kind of over here while I'm playing to kind of simulate that. And I've also got to guard against this idea of playing with, and again, playing with friends is not the thing you do all the time. So how do you play with friends? Keep social, do your thing, win when you're going to win, but at the same time, not buckle to like peer pressure, right? Because I play the way that I play. And what I don't want to get into is a situation where we're all doing our thing at the table and we end up kind of almost, everybody's got to play the same way, or so-and-so's a great shooter and now you're going to go all in, and that's not the way that I play. So I'm going to have to kind of get myself in a mental state to play the game the way that it should be played, number one, the way that I play it, number two, and not deviate from that, number three. So this is going to be an exercise really in discipline. I think it's going to be one of my toughest tests of discipline yet, where I'm playing probably at a table with 5 or 6 people that I know from the community and just playing kind of my way with them. So I think it's going to be interesting. I got into I don't want to say a dispute, but I got into like a conversation with a guy on the Wager Me This comment board. And it was kind of interesting. We were talking about, he goes by the name of Math Guru, which implies what I'm about to say. We were talking about probabilities. We were talking about attacking trends. And Jacob's whole video that I'm responding to here was about attacking trends. And Jacob's like, yeah, you've got to, when it's going right, you've got to be, willing to go all in. This part of being mentally tough is, yes, I've got my strategy. My strategy might be something simple, right? Like we're just going to go with maybe I'll set up a basic iron cross here. If that's your strategy, great, right? But you've got to have your plan. How do you attack it, right? When do you start pressing and being aggressive? When do you pull back and that kind of thing? So he was talking about trends, and this guy writes in, he says, there's no such thing as a trend in craps. There's no such thing as a trend in craps. Every roll is unique. The dice have no memory and all of that. And, I fired back and I'm like, that's maybe mathematically true. Mathematically, yes, the dice, one roll of the die has nothing to do with the next roll of the die, and I will 100% agree with that. Whether you are an actual dice influencer or a dice controller, you may have some influence over the pocket of numbers that you're more likely to throw. You may have a better ability than others to kind of avoid the 7. I know that there are folks out there, I watch, like for example, I watch George from CY Practice 4 or 5 nights a week, and he's proving that he can do that, right? I can't do that. I'm not that good yet. So yeah, there's an element of random to every roll. However, there is a real thing called trends. And the guy that I was talking to just wasn't buying into that at all. He wasn't buying into the ability of there to be a trend. And I think he was responding to the word hot table, cold table. And so to respond back to that, what I would say is this. There is a hot and cold table, but it's a word, right? Remember this, when we talk about this, it's a word. And what I mean by that is, and I brought this up to light last week in a show, where I say, and I'll show this to you here in a minute, there are times where you might get the pass line wins twice in a row, and the don't pass then wins 4 times in a row. The pass line wins once, and then 2 more don't pass wins. It doesn't mean when you're here on the second don't pass win that the third don't pass win is more likely to happen. And I think when people hear the word trend, that's what they think we mean. And I'm not saying that there is a statistical trend that this is more likely than that. That's the DGE way of thinking. The drunk guy explains Charlie does a lot of, if this happens, it's not going to happen again, so he turns bets off, or he goes all in on a lay 10 if a 10 rolls as a point or something. I don't buy into that really at all. I don't think that there is truth in what's going to repeat or not repeat, or that this is more likely to happen because those first 2 happen. What I do believe, though, is that there are these kind of pockets of outcomes. There are definitely clusters of outcomes. And if you look over time, sure, let's just give the pass line 1 more or 2 more wins, right? And in this case, and I said this before, you're almost at statistical perfection here, right? You've got 6 don't pass wins and 5 pass line wins. And over the course of time, the probabilities are perfect there, right? That's what should probably happen. However, in the heat of the game, this is what happens. And you'll find that one side will have a little bit of a pocket where it wins more than the other side does. And that's what you're looking for, right? If you can spot that, and again, I wouldn't necessarily call it a trend. What I would call it is a cluster of outcomes. And that happens. If you look at any chart, linear chart over time of how craps games work, if you just go to Win Craps and throw in any strategy, you'll see that there is this kind of a trend line where it goes up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and then like this. What you want to do is find yourself in one of those clusters. And what you're doing at the craps table, if you're aggressively into the game and you're mentally into what's happening, and you see a cluster about to form like this, jump into it, because they do happen. There are pockets where there are 5 or 6 wins of one side or another that happen in a row that evens out the statistics, right? You have seen people roll 5 7s in a row. Statistically, not very likely, Reality happens all the time. So when you find yourself in one of those trends, you've got to be mentally tough enough to attack that trend. And mentally tough enough is not the word. Maybe you got to be mentally aware to spot the trend and then have the cojones to jump in on the trend and start betting with the trend. So that's all I want to say about that. And I want to show you a strategy here that I may or may not play. And then this goes into mental toughness as well. If you're going to, and this will be a, George, I'm sorry, I see that you're online there. This is going to be a dark side thing. But I want to show this because it's an easy way to talk about this. This was put out by Andrew over at Craps Down Under, who, if you haven't yet watched Andrew's channel, you got to watch Andrew. A, his accent is fantastic. And B, he really does a great job of breaking things down and explaining these strategies. This one is pretty cool, and it's a dark side thing. And if you're going to be a dark side player, like my friend Greg at 555 Craps, the mental part of being a dark side player is really pretty hard. And I want you to think about this because it's super easy to be a dark side player, right? All you got to do is drop a unit on the don't pass and sit there and wait. There's not much to this, right? It isn't like you're, when do I press? When do I pull back? Do I press and collect? Do I spread out? You don't have any decisions to make. You're dropping a nickel or a quarter or whatever it is on the don't pass and you're waiting it out and seeing what happens. That is the, stinky old guy on the hook with a cigar way of playing it, and it works. But the mental side of that game is hard. I was watching Jeff at Mid-Atlantic, and he was talking about don't be afraid of a long roll. What he's saying is when you're on the don't, it's okay. Let it sit there. You don't have to worry about if the guys roll 35 times in here, fantastic. Let everybody at the table win money, and you just wait for the 7. The 7's going to come. I can tell you this. For a statistical absolute that I can make, 100% of the rollers will 7 out. 100% of the time. This bet will always win, right? It may not win on every shooter, every roll, but this bet will always pay off at some point because everybody does 7 out. The don't pass is a mental game. You've got to be able to sit here and not get sucked in up here, right? That's the idea of playing a mentally tough don't pass game. It's hard to do that because you want to get on the action. Action's fun. Adrenaline is fun. But you're here to make money on the don't. That's if you're predisposed to do that, then you got to stick to that. And I think mental toughness is part of it. Try doing that sometime. Go to a table and literally just put down table minimum on don't pass and sit there for a couple hours and see if you can do it. You may not make a lot of money, but it's definitely a exercise for you to take. And I think that that's a real thing. So anyway, I want to show you this strategy real quick that Andrew put out. So I love this. I love this way of playing the don't. It's a really good way to feel a table out too. And what he's looking for is one of these clusters of numbers to come out. And the way that we cluster numbers in this way, it's a progression. And I'm going to use nickels here. And we'll pretend a $5 table, even though none exists. But math-wise, it's easy to see 2 units. So we'll do 2 units per shooter. Take all this away. And what you're going to do is you're going to drop 1 unit out there. And you're waiting for a trend. You're looking for a trend where 4 winners in a row. That's all you want. 4 don't pass winners in a row. I do it with any winner or any loser, and I reset myself after an outcome. So what will happen is you're looking for, the pattern here is 1, 3, 2, 4. So if your bet wins, they're going to pay you. You're going to increase this bet to 3 units. You're going to press it up, add 1 from your rack. Now you're 2 units in from your rack. If this wins the second time, you're going to get paid 3. So you went from a 1 unit bet to a 3 unit bet. Now you go back to a 2 unit bet and you've pulled back profit already. If the third win you get, it's going to pay you 2. You're going to stack it up and go to 4. So you went from 1 unit from your rack. The second win was 3 total units, including 1 from your rack. Third one is you go to 3 or back to 2, then you go up to 4. And if this last bet wins, you get paid 4. You bring it all back to your rack. You started out with 2 and you win 12, right? Or 10 total. That's a pretty good day at the office right there if you can catch a cluster. And again, not talking about jumping on a trend. I'm not talking about sniffing out a cold table or a hot table, but if the table does start clustering in one pocket like that and you're betting appropriately, and again, the don't pass, there's not a lot of opportunity to go pressing and collecting, but that's a little way that you can do it. And again, at a small level of risk and the discipline it takes to sit here and wait for that to happen, and watch the results kind of pour in, it's hard. Your brain has to be in the right spot to do that. And I think it's got to be in the same spot that it would be in if you're on the right side. And if you're betting up in here, and again, your system has to be on lock. You got to be totally locked into what you're doing. So let's roll this out really quick. And if I have time, I'm going to run back into the Horseman a little bit and showcase the Horseman at a different betting level. So let's just go ahead and run out, and I'll turn the puck off here. I'm just going to try and track some, if I can catch one of those clusters, and we'll see what happens. So we're going to come up with a point of 5 here, first time through. And as always, I'll use the pass and the don't pass sidebar here to track wins and losses. So we're on 1, and you'll see how I run this. I'm only going to keep 2 units in my rack. I'm just going to track the number of times we win and the number of units won or lost. There's an 8, and again, I'm looking here for a 7 or a 5 to knock me out. That's it. We don't care about anything else right now. This is that don't pass discipline. I'm just going to roll random until we see what's up here. And there's the 5. So we lose this bet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark down here a 1 unit loss, reset my rack. And now that restarts the process again. So we did not catch a cluster there because we lost our bet. We started brand new, looking for a cluster anew here. So we'll start again. We'll be on the 8. And again, another don't pass mantra, don't fear the 8 or the 6. The 7 is never more or less likely, although this time we lost it again. So again, we lose the unit. I mark down a 1 unit loss over here. We'll reset our point. I'll reset my rack, and we'll start again with another 2 unit shot here. So I'm going to be on the 6. This might go pretty quick, actually. On the 6. There's a yo. There's a 6. So again, boy, we're getting hammered here, right? And what you can see is this. The 5, the 6, or the 8, I'll lose that bet. I marked it up already. We'll reset it. We have 3 in a row here, right? Is it more or less likely that the shooter is going to make their next point? It's no more or less likely, right? The dice don't know what just happened. The shooter is not in, I'm random shooter. I'm not in any kind of rhythm. However, we are in a cluster of outcomes here. So if you are a right side bettor and you're in this cluster of outcomes, after that second one, you should be on the pass line, maybe taking odds, because you want to catch fire when the fire is burning, not when it's flamed out, right? There's a 7. So here we've got 1. So we're going to take a win. We're going to take from our rack, and we're going to go to 3. This will be our 3 unit bet. And again, you're trying to catch the wave when it's going. Now, the right side bettors, your wave is over because we just hit a 7. So you actually went 1, 2, 3, and you're done. But I'm still playing in my trend line over here. There's a 6. Again, looking for now the second hit in a row and a chance to regress that don't pass bet. Let's see if we can't catch one of these waves here, and we'll call it good. There's 2 horn numbers back to back. Is the horn more likely to come? Everybody's shouting at me right now. See a horn, bet a horn, right? Just for you, I'm going to do it. In no way would I ever do that in a live game. I don't believe that. I think that's a bunch of BS. See a horn, bet a horn. There is no likelihood to it. It happens when it happens, right? That's a thing. See, we just burned $4 there by doing that. It was kind of a dumb move. Just to show you, don't do that. Here we go. Let's get that big red here, huh? I want to show this trend paying off because it's actually pretty interesting. If we get a win here, you'll see what happens pretty quickly. That's why I love this system so much. There's a 7. That's perfect. We get a 7. We get paid 3. We go back to a 2 unit bet, and we pull back 4. Now, we're in a small cluster. We've only hit 2 in a row. Yet, I've already shown a profit here, right? Matter of fact, the profit that I've shown is bigger than all of my losses so far. So this little strategy of Andrew's where you're kind of chasing a trend here, after 2 hits in a row, you actually can outlast 3 losses, which is pretty fantastic. So now we're on the 8 point. It's going to be 8. And again, not fearing the 7. There's the 8, which is a bummer, but so we lose our 2 unit bet here, but we won 4. So I'm going to mark up over here a 4 unit win in my column. And that's how I practice. When I'm doing working through strategies, I work this way so I can track the number of wins or losses in a row and the number of units that I lost at each phase and see where I am. So after getting smacked 3 times, we found a very small cluster of 2 wins. We bet appropriately in the cluster and profited a unit out of that after getting beat 3 times in a row. So finding and playing for those clusters is kind of the game. On the don't pass especially, without some kind of a progression on the don't pass that you're sticking to religiously, even if you've lost a few times in a row, we'll do it again here. Even if you lost 3 in a row or 4 in a row or whatever it is, it's fine because the dice will do what they do and you will end up coming back, right? These things always have a way of reclustering. Now, if I start seeing ping pong back and forth, that might be a reason to stop, right? The ping ponging is hard to do a progression with. Okay, there's a 6 against, we'll lose the 1 unit. And again, whenever we're back on the ugly side of things, I'll do one more phase through this thing, and then I'll switch strategies with you. There's a 5, new point's gonna be 5. There's a 6 again. There's an 8. Another 8. There's the yo. Here we go with a 30 roll. There's the 7 out. Okay, 7 out. We'll get paid 1. We'll add 1. We'll be at our second level of this progression, which is a 3. So we go 1, 3. If we can hit here, we'll go back down to 2, and we'll lock in that little profit. There's the 7. So that happens. We hit for a 3-unit win, reduce down to 2, and rack 4. So now we are in profit. And unfortunately, 7 out, right? So we get a 7 on the come out roll. So we lose that. And the way that I would log this is I'm over, right? That cluster of wins for me is done. It was a 2-win cluster on the don't, and I profited 4 units, which again, I've now won a total of 8. I've lost 4. I got my butt kicked 4 times. I only won twice, but I'm up double my money. So that's actually a pretty good outcome right there. So I'm digging that right there. Anyway, from the don't pass, you got to have discipline. You've got to have money management. You've got to have a plan. And you've got to not get sucked into a long roll, right? Getting sucked into, oh, it feels good. Let me go throw some money up in here. For a don't pass player, that's going to be never going to end well. So with that said, let me switch gears real quick. And I'm going to go ahead and practice and just talk through it here. The Horseman again, and I'm going to do it this time from the $15 level. A subscriber had asked me to do this for him. And I want to show you the way that I would approach this from the $15 level. And there's 2 ways to really do this strategy at this lower level. The basic strategy, as you probably will recall, is it's going to be whatever you're going to bet on the don't pass. Let's say it's $15 table minimum, followed by 3 of the same size bets in the come. Now, that's fine at any level. The same size bet is good. What I've been experimenting with recently, and I mean like the last few sessions of practice here, is toying with the idea of at the lower level like this, increasing my don't pass bet and using that as a reason to play the come bets slightly differently. So let me show you the basic way with 15. Again, not a terribly taxing way to play. And if you're going to take the basic Horseman and just do the come bets, we'll do the base strategy first. I'll do 1 roll where we show base strategy. So our point's going to be 8. And we'll do a straight $15 come bet. And again, right here, the 7 would be a good outcome for us. We rolled a 4 though. So that come bet goes to the 4. Our second come bet, again, here the 7 would win us 2 stacks, $30. We'd lose 15. Also, not the worst outcome. And now we move to the 9. And our third come bet, again, on the early 7 for a random shooter, we're in good shape. We would even up our money. We'd be out of here, able to try again. And actually, there it is. There's the 7. So, and I always give this example, right? On a random shooter, this is what you expect. Rolls 1, 2, or 3, you're going to see a 7 most of the time. So here, we didn't win a thing. okay? If I was betting on the inside, if I had done this, if I had done an inside bet and I bypassed the come out roll, what if I had done that? What if I had done, what is that, 66 inside? And bypassed the come out roll, what we would have had there was a single hit on the 9 for 21 bucks. And if I had collected that bet and not pressed it up like most people do, I'd still be down by 40 bucks in that case, okay? Where the Horseman helps you out is in the short roll like this, because if you're gonna throw 66 out there or 44 out there every single time and hope for the roll, you're gonna be disappointed most of the time. So the Horseman was designed to not have that be your reality. It was designed to say, yeah, we're gonna come, don't pass. We're gonna take 3 cracks at come bets and we're gonna hope that those 3 cracks either land and start hitting, because you want to get into the long roll and let them help you out, or you're going to be okay with the short crappy roll and try it again. You're always trying to try again, right? The idea here is to get into one of those clusters of wins, right? We're trying to find a win cluster, and we use the come bet to help us hunt that down. So we're going to, again, 1 unit there, and by 1 unit I mean 15. This is table minimum 15 bucks. And then I'll switch the strategy. All right, so we're gonna lose our come bet, which is a bummer. So our second come bet goes in, and now we're down to only having 2 shots here. So that's the way it's gonna be. There's a 6, which is actually a good. We'll take that. I'd like to have the come bet go to the 6. And our final come bet here, we'll see if we can't get that 6 to repeat, which we did, which is great. So that becomes an off and on. So what happens here is the 6 comes down and gets paid. Your come bet moves to the 6. And you're set back here again with another comeback. So that one that we lost is back in our rack, which is pretty nice. Now we got a 4. And here I stop. Right? I have placed 3 bets into the come, rather. That was a weird move. I placed 3 bets in the come. One of them lost. One of them won. We're done. We're going to let those 2 bets just sort of resolve themselves, and we'll see what happens here. Hopefully we can get some repeats before big red comes. And again, here we are, we're hunting the long rollout. So here it is, that's great. We got a 6. The 6 will get paid, 15 bucks. Now, what you can do, drop a nickel, get some whites, and come back at that 6 for 12. And use those wins to get a free bet. Now my 6 is paid for, and I'll press it to the sky now. There's no reason not to press the 6. Here's the 4. The same thing on the 4. The 4 is gonna pay 15. What I'll probably do with this, again, is grab 5 nickels and grab the, well, I'll grab the 5, just the 5 this time. We'll take the nickels back. We'll get just the 5. We already have the 8 covered by the 7. And now I've got 2 free bets. The 6 and the 5 are both paid for by the come bet wins. My come bet initial money is back in my rack, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. There's the 7. Fine, those go away. Do not care. I'm getting paid here on the don't pass. And for that roll, we had a pretty good little profit there. If you think about what we started with, which was 15 on the don't, 1, 2, 3 come bets, and I've got a $23 profit. That's not terrible for what is a kind of a short roll. We did hit the 6 a few times in there, so maybe folks that were on the inside to start with that roll would have made more than us, but we were safe most of the time, which is what I like. Now, let's switch gears a little bit with this thing, and I want to show you how I might play this at a higher level at a $15 table. And the way that I'm going to do this is this. What about playing at a $15 table a $30 don't pass? And having, I'm actually going to put 90 bucks here in reds. You'll see how this works. There's 15, 15, and 15. There's our 3 come bets. And I'm going to have enough to do odds on the come bets. I may not place them, the odds, but we're going to plan for it. So I've got a $30 don't pass. And again, we're going to hunt down a trend here. Let's assume, like last time, we hit some inside numbers and the tables feel like you're in a cluster of lots of numbers being come out. So what if we did something like this? A $30 on the don't pass. So we'll double up the table minimum here. And we'll come out with a 9. And here, we're going to go ahead and drop 15 in the come. And the goal being to get a good number and potentially place some odds on it. So I'm going to use this extra money and we'll calculate where we are. So here if the 7 comes, we're going to win 30 plus 15, which is 45, which is more than we were going to win in the previous version because we have a bigger don't pass bet here. And this don't pass bet will help us out through the roll. That's going to be an 8. So this come bet moves to the 8. Again, if I feel like we're trending positively, I'll molly it and I'll play odds on that thing. And now we'll do another come bet. And again, here, we're going to try and use these come bets to maximize the output if we can, if we feel like we're in a cluster. So we lost that because it was a midnight. So we'll go again. And again, maximum of 3 come bets. This is my third one. So if it gets set, I'm not doing a third one. And there's a 6. Couldn't have been better. So we end up with 2 come bets, both with odds. There's $60 out there in come bets versus 30 on the don't pass. So in this case, I've taken my come bets and I've leveled them up with odds. If I didn't do that, I'd be here with 30 on the don't and 30 in come bets. So you have a choice here whether you want to attack the trend. And again, this is the mental part of the game. Are you mentally aware that the dice are going in a cluster of inside numbers and going to do this, right? Or are you disciplined enough to say, no, that's not happening. I'm not going to put the odds on, even though I probably should, quote unquote, it's the best payout in the house. You have to make a mental gut check of what are you going to do here. I'm sensing in the last couple of rolls that we're getting more inside numbers. I'm going to level up and I'm going to throw odds up there, which makes my don't pass bet way less powerful unless one of those things hits and it comes down. Let's go ahead and roll it and see what happens here. Again, my 7 protection is not very good at this point, but I do have 2 great numbers up there. And I think if we can get the shooter to roll some numbers for us, we're going to be okay. There's a 5. Another 5. There's our 6, which is great. So the 6 come bet will come down. One nice thing about come bets, I know people give you a hard time about this. I like that they come down. That's going to be 15 flat, and it's going to pay 18 for the odds, 6 to 5 back on the backside. This all comes back, right? And you have a choice now. As a bettor, you can say, well, do I want to go back out there, right? But the come bet forces you to kind of put things in your rack. When you talk about, this is another good mental point to make. It's too bad at the end of the video. The mental point I want to make here is about house money. And there's this notion of playing with house money. And you've all said it, right? Playing with house money. When you're out here, and let's say that that was a $30 bet on the 6, right? And let's say that it paid what it does pay is $35, and you just did this and pressed it right up because house money, right? You pressed your bet up. It's easy to do. And remember, the casino employees are trained to do what? Just that, right? They're trained to keep your money on their table. And it's a mental game that they play with you. Remember that when you press, it's no different than this. What if they said, here's your money, and you have to take it off the table and then put it back on the table and say, now press it up. Where it was in your rack and then you took it out of your rack. Essentially, that's what you're doing. You just don't realize that you're doing it. So I want you to keep kind of mentally focused on the fact that house money is, it's a mental game they play with you. It's bullshit. It's your money the whole time. So come bets force you to bring it to your rack, which I like, right? I brought back in that case $36 in wins from my lower bet there. So you have a choice. You could let that ride out and say, yep, got my profit, I'm good. Or you could drop $30 now from your rack onto the 6 and start the pressing process, right? If you're in a good, I'm going to do that here just to show you how. So if you're in a good spot, you can drop 30 and say place the 6, and they'll do this for you. And now you've basically got a place bet that's essentially paid for, because in my rack here, I've got 1, 2, almost my 3 come bets back in my rack. So this bet is essentially paid for. You could do that. I might not. I mean, depends on how the table's going and how really slow or fast choppy it is, but that's an option. Again, the $15 table, we put 2 $15 come bets out there. We felt like we were in a good cluster of inside numbers, and we've added odds to them. And here's the 7, right? This is probably why I wouldn't have done this. I'm going to take that down because I would never have done that. But here we go. We lose 30. We win 30. okay? So effectively, you broke even on this bet here, and your come bets paid for themselves. And that's not a bad way to play this thing on a relatively choppy table. Now here is the situation. This table, super choppy, right? That was a pretty average roll. Would you agree? We see rolls where it's 1, 2, 3, 7, which happens a lot. That's why we made the Headless Horseman. And then you see rolls like that, where I'll rewatch the video here. I think that was about 5 shots, thereabouts in that roll. How many times do you see a 5 or 6 shot roll? And it's just like, God, you can't make any money on those things, right? The 5 or 6 shots, you might get a number, press it, maybe pull a little bit back, press it again, then they 7 out, and you get nothing out of it. This way here, we did make a few bucks. So that's actually pretty good. So I do like that. Now let's do this again. I think somebody's asking in chat. I'm going to read this real quick. Yeah, we could play the inside as well. So let's do that real quick. I'll do it one time where I play the inside ahead. Now this is an more aggressive play where we do this. We'll say we'll still do 30 down here, which I like. We'll do the 66 on the inside. We'll add up our investment here in a second. There's 66 inside, $30 here, and we'll need 3 come bets. Okay, so your total investment here is going to be 30, 66, that's 96, plus 45, that's going to be 141 or whatever that is. I think so. So whatever, something like that. 140, I think it's 141. So that's going to be your total investment per shooter. 66 inside, 30 on the don't. And now what we're going to do is hope that our come bets knock those bets off and start paying for them. So let's go ahead and come out. We'll leave those up there. They're off for the come out. We'll try and get a point established, which will be 5. That's fine. We'll take this bet down. No need for it. But we'll come through with a come bet now. And again, ideally, we knock those numbers off. Now here the math works like this. What you've got out here is $51. Out there, you've got 30 here and 15 here. So you have 45 for the 7 right now versus 51 in action. So if the 7 comes right now, you actually are going to lose $6, where normally the Horseman wins you a little bit of money. But that's fine. You're trying to get to a solid number here. What happens is a bummer because it goes to the 10. It's a bummer because you didn't knock one of those bets down, but you do have an extra number covered. So it ends up being kind of okay. There's a 6. That was a great throw, by the way. This goes to the 6 as a come bet. This $18 comes down and pays 21. Now, options. You could rack, right? You could take this $15 and just leave it in the come for the third come bet, which means you have $24 out here. You could take your odds with that, which is not a bad play, and rack the 8. That's actually probably what I'm going to do here. It's the 6. I'll take the odds on that. Or you could have just taken that down completely and have a totally paid for 6 and 10. The 6 and 10 now are completely paid for combat-wise. But let's leave it up there. Let's do this. Again, we're trying to be aggressive here. If you're trying to grab that cluster of inside numbers, then let's grab the cluster. There's a 4. So now we've got the whole damn thing covered, right? We got our 2 come bets went to the ends, right? We have 6, 4, and 10 as come bets. We have the 8 and 9 as place bets. Those 2 can be pressed if we decide to. We get a 5, which is probably the worst. We hit every single number, right? Here's the deal, man. This sucks. I'm going to turn the puck off, but let's look at what happened. This is one of those things where like you hit every single number once. We're probably in good shape for the small, but we got nothing out of that, right? It was not a bad little roll there, but we got nothing out of it. We're going to come back out. I lost my don't pass. If I'm the shooter, I'd replace that. If I'm not the shooter, which let's say that I'm not going back. I'm not going to chase it. No need to. We're back on the 8. I'm going to leave that place bet on the 8. I'm not on the pass or don't pass, so that's actually a winning bet for me. I'm actually kind of hoping that we get that. That'll give me a chance to press it back up later on. There's a 6, which is great. Our come bet now is going to come down and get paid. So we're going to get paid 18 for the odds, 15 for the flat. And what I'll probably do is go right back out there and make that a place bet and bring all this back to the house. And now my 6 is a paid for place bet with a little bit of profit in the rack here. So we're doing actually pretty good. And you'll notice that this board barely resembles the Horseman. We started out with a don't pass and 3 come bets. I've got 2 come bets set. no more don't pass, and we're literally just kind of playing this thing out, and it's kind of paid for itself. Now I got a hit on the 10, which is great. That's going to pay a flat 15 bucks. I'm going to grab the 5 with that and rack the flat. Now I've got my inside bets, aside from the 9, have all been paid for by come bet wins. Those are all free bets. They can all be pressed with wanton abandon if you want to. There's an 18 that pays, I need to get some more reds over here. The 18 is going to pay us 21. Right? We're going to probably take that up to 30. Rack the rest. Puck is off. My 4 is at risk, but nothing else is. We'll grab a point. And if you're trend watching, and again, cluster, 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 right? Cluster of outcomes. What's our cluster of outcomes? Tons of inside numbers being hit right now. This shooter right now is in this cluster here, right? This is the time to go after it. So now on these hits, we're just going to start pressing and see if we can't catch it. There's an 8. So here we go, 25, 35. Now we're going to press it up. We're going to use our profits to press. We're going to go up once. Again, on a free bet, let's see how far we can take this thing. There's a 9, which is our point. That pays 21. We're going to add 2 from our profit, make that bet a quarter, and rack. So here we go. We rack a little, press a little, make it look like a quarter, take it down, and again, we're in a really good spot right now. And the Horseman has set us up well for success. There's a 5. Leave that 4. If I get that 4 to hit, then the Horseman completely did its job. That's the only thing we're missing here is the 4. There's a 6. And again, it's going to pay 21. We're going to take that to 30 and rack the 9. And off we go. There's the 9. That's going to pay 35. We're going to go to 50 with it and rack 2 quarters. If you watch my video from the other day, there's the 4. Thank you, Dice Gods. We'll take our 4 hit. I'm just going to bring that right to the house. I said to you in my other video, don't press a bet you haven't paid for. That was one of the points that I had to make there. Don't press if you haven't paid for it. Now, you're asking the minimum to do this. Okay, the minimum that I did here, so let me recap and bring us back here. I started out with 30 on the don't. I had enough money to do 3 $15 come bets, which is 45 bucks, right? So there's 30 and 45, 75 bucks to get out for the basic Horseman. I also had 66 on the inside. So I don't have enough reds here, but let me lay it out so you can see it. If you're going to do it this way, if you're going to be aggressive and do, there's 65, 6. So if we add this up per shooter, you need 30 and 45, 75 plus 66. So that's going to be 135, 141 per shooter. So you need 1,400 bucks to do 10 shooters like at this level, to go 66 inside and then play the Horseman through. As you can see, then the roll that we're on here, that worked perfectly because we knocked down all of our inside bets with come bets, making them all paid for. Every bet out here is essentially a paid for through profits bet where no risk to press hard here. That's a big buy-in though, right? So if your bankroll doesn't support the whole idea of going 66 inside ahead of the Horseman, then what you're looking at is 75 bucks for the basic Horseman, 30 plus 45, in which case you want 750 in your bankroll to get that done. And if you're going to do it this way, you've got to be disciplined about it, right? You're not going to be adding odds to your come bets, right? You're not adding odds to your don't pass bet. You're going to have to play it like this until this thing pays off. Use winnings from this to then go 66 inside on the next shooter. That's how you have to play that. Use your bankroll to build your bankroll type of thing. So with that said, let's go ahead and finish out this shooter if I can. I may be on the magical George roll here, and we'll see what happens. Can we keep winning? Yo. Now there's the 7. All right, so we end up finally 7ing out, but look at our rack. We actually did super good on that roll. And again, the Horseman sets you up for that because the 66 inside became fodder for the place bets that were here. And we pressed them up. And again, I think talking, getting out of rhythm, maybe had another couple hits in here. We could have collected a little more through subsequent hits. So that was a really good way to kind of go through this and show you what the Horseman can do for you in terms of getting you set up to win. Now, if the table was trending the other way, and again, if you start seeing those clusters of lots and lots and lots of sevens, what I probably do is this. I probably go 3 come bets, right? But I probably also drop a big lay bet out here. Depending on the point, I probably am laying on the point as well. If the table is seeing lots of sevens and you're in this cluster of that kind of outcome, you're probably going to lay bet down here to protect and kind of go after it a little bit harder. So skill, I've not done 88 inside only because I'm trying to stay at the $15 level. What I'm doing here is really staying with, if the base bet on the table, let me go to my other camera here. If the base bet on the table is 15, if I'm playing $15 on the don't, I'm doubling the don't pass, but I'm keeping the come bets at half of that level. I think the leveling of the numbers is right. If you go to 88 on the inside with only a $30 don't pass, you're going to exceed your ability to match what you've got bet on the 7, which I think at the $15 level, if you're on a smaller bankroll, you can't go 88 inside. It's just too much money for folks. And that's why I recommended doing the minimum wherever you can, just maximizing on the don't just a little bit. Aloha, Brian. How you doing? Great job last night, by the way. I hope you all saw that Hawaii Crap Shooters got their 5,000th subscriber. It's funny because you announced 5,000, Brian, and like a minute later, you're like 5,200. Like it just happens like that. It's so awesome. We're at 500. We're right here. We're just on the cusp of 500 subscribers. So our celebration will be happening, but it won't be quite as, I don't think I can get the top level talent that you got to come join me unless you join me. That'll be it. But yeah, mahalo, my friend. Good job. I can't wait to see you in Vegas. It's going to be super fun. I'm practicing here for this right now. I'm getting my shot down. I'm working on the strategy that I want to bring. I'm fine-tuning the Horseman a little bit and just getting my groove down. So I can't wait to go out there and hang out. And playing craps with you is going to be great. But like, I'm looking forward to just getting out there and having dinner and like drinking and talking and just kind of shooting the breeze a little bit and getting to know you. So it's going to be an amazing trip. I can't wait for it. If y'all get out there, that'll be super fun. So, you're right. There's $10 tables downtown Vegas. I believe, Brian, you can probably chat back and confirm that. I think down on Fremont Street, you will find $10 tables. I know that off strip, there are $10 tables. In my hometown, there's $5 tables. Where I live here in Seattle, there's 2 $5 tables that I can drive to within 20 minutes. So for me, I like playing this at the $15 level, taking that one hit and going down to 22 or 32 or 32 across rather, or 27 inside, and reducing down and really going crazy like that. You can play forever doing that, which is pretty awesome. So anyway, that's my show today. Again, I want to impress upon you this. The mental side of this is really important. Have your strategy, know what you're going to do, stick to it, have discipline, have the cojones, like I said, to attack the cluster of numbers when you see it. And Brian, I was talking about you earlier. I'm going with friends to play this time, which I've never done before. I've always gone by myself to play at the casinos, right? This is the first time I'm going to go out there and play with other craps players who I actually know. And your instinct is going to be to just whip out 2K and start throwing, whatever, 640 inside and having a great old time. Well, peer pressure is a tough thing, right? So I got to stick to my strategy. I got to stick to the way that I play and still be social. I've actually got strategies that I'm practicing that are purely social strategy. Like, I don't even care if I win. Like, just minimum bets. We'll do some marching shoulder. We'll do some other things just to kind of have fun during the rolls while we're out there kibitzing. So, the mental side of this game is a hard thing to master. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to know your deal. Got to be plan, execute the plan, and see the trends, and know that trends are real. You cannot fall into this thing of pure statistics, right? You know me, I'm a math guy. I love my statistics, but pure probability and actual trends are two different things, and they do marry up. You will see 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 outcomes in a row. You're trying for that. When you see that happening, you've got to be able to jump into it, and that's where the mental side of the game really comes in. Recognizing that cluster that you're in, and having the the wherewithal to go and attack it. So anyway, that's it for today, all. Thank you very much for attending, everybody. Again, comments. I know you're already subscribed, and I appreciate that. Tell your friends. We're trying to get to 500. We're marching toward 1,000 subscribers here. That's my next goal is to get 1,000 by Christmas. So we'll see if we can get to that number. And thanks all. See you all at the tables.